You're watching the JJ Podcast.
Well, James Griffin, thank you so much for taking your time out to chat with us today.
Pleasure.
We are here at Parliament House during Budget Week. Can you just tell us what's the process and what you go through during this time?
Well, in the simplest terms, it's the way that the government, in my case the state government, chooses to spend your hard-earned tax dollars. And it's a decision of the government of the day to say, well, these are the priorities that we want to tackle. This is where we're going to put the money and this is how we think it's best spent. Obviously, there are some things that we would all agree on, making sure that our nurses, teachers, fireys, ambos are all paid well and what they deserve. But then there are other things that the government chooses to spend money on which are probably contentious at best. But at the end of the day, it's a moment for the government to say, this is the direction we're going to go in, this is what we see as important and what we're prioritising, and off they go. And that's happened this week. And then 2 days later, the opposition gets its opportunity to respond and say, well, and provide a critique. And a good opposition like we did would say, this is where we think you've gone wrong, but this is what we would have done, and actually plot a chart. Some responses. Yep. So that's happened this week.
How often do you have to be at Parliament House?
It's about 90 something days a year.
Okay.
Normally Tuesday to Thursday, but this week Tuesday to Friday. And the reason for that is it allows the rural and regional MPs to travel in from wherever they're from on a Monday or go home on a Friday so they can get back for the weekend. But I don't have that problem.
No.
I just get
Nice
on the
and
ferry.
close.
Get on the ferry and come over.
Come home.
And tell us what life is like as a politician. What would be the favourite part of your job and some of the more challenging aspects?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a diverse role. You meet the most amazing people in the community, and one of the best parts of it is just seeing what our community gets up to and the heart that they've got and their ability to rally together and do amazing things. And I think, observation, having done this now for nearly 10 years, would be that people say, oh, does community still exist in the modern day? Is it still there? It absolutely is. If you could bottle it, it'd be found in your surf clubs, in your PNCs, in your different various community groups that are out there, and then even in streets. So most people now have like a WhatsApp for their street, right?
Yep.
And that is community, and that didn't exist like that 50 years ago, but it does today. So community is a really great part of the job. And then you've got awesome projects that you can get stuck into, and my personal favourite is the hospice that we built up there on North Head, the only one of its kind in New South Wales. And it's kind of our gift as people in Manly to say we have this amazing part of the world. We've built this hospice to provide palliative care and respite care for anyone in New South Wales, no matter where they live, to come here for free. And that was
Beautiful
a project
part
that's
of the world.
that's up and running and opened its doors 2 years ago. So it's good. But it's got its challenges as well. Everybody's a armchair critic, and you can't please everybody, but you just roll with it.
And now you're obviously a Liberal and currently in opposition.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us about how that adds an extra element of challenge to your job and how important it is to have a good opposition for government?
Yep. I'm really proud to be a Liberal. I don't hide that in our community. They've known from day one that I'm the Liberal candidate, and they've elected me 3 times on that basis. And I think they know with me that they get a great brand of the Liberal Party that they're very happy and proud of, and I try and communicate that to them as much as I can, but that's anchored in supporting them as a community. And it was actually a great mentor, Gladys Berejiklian, and Glad said, you'll only be a Liberal MP if you're here for the community first. It's your community. So I think this whole kind of act that the independent movement have of saying, oh, we're community independents. Well, I'm a community Liberal. You don't just get to put community in front of your political party and kind of make it up. It's if you're elected, that the community have put you there. So I'm proud of that. And we're in opposition now, and I think we did a good job when we were in government, but obviously each government runs its course and people kind of go, it's time for change. And now in opposition, the role is, I think it's a delicate balance between holding a government to account, and in that you've got to be critical, but at the same time, people are switching off. They've got enough negativity in your everyday media. So how do you do that in framing up, well, We disagree with the government's position. Here's what we would do in the alternative. This is what a vision looks like, a bit of optimism and hope and, anchored in realism. But this is an alternative pathway. I think that's critical in being a decent opposition.
You've mentioned community a couple of times. We've done some segments recently on stay in your lane, and we've been talking about the roles of the federal government, the state government and local council. Do you think that the community thing is getting put aside or washed up in the fact that we've got members that are trying to focus on things that aren't about their local community? They're kind of stepping into issues that aren't within their roles?
Yeah, that's just let's call it for what it is. That's a deflection tactic. That's plain and simple. If that member or level of government begin to obsess or get entirely focused on something or an issue that's not actually within their control, they're just doing that as a deflection tactic. You guys put a post up that just set out really clearly, this is what your federal person does, this is what your state person does, this is what the council does. And that's a really important message to take out to the community, because most people don't really appreciate where one begins and the other ends. It's just a blurring of kind of responsibilities. And the more they know, the more empowered they can be to hold that particular person to account. And that's really important, because fundamentally, I talk about the community a lot because I think they expect delivery. And in my newsletter that's coming out, there's a report card in it. And I'm really transparent in saying, here are the projects that I'm working for you on. Here are the ones where I have made no progress.
Yeah.
I
like that.
I'm just
be
being really
honest.
upfront saying on these things, I'm sorry, like for one reason or another, it hasn't moved. But there are some that I've completed and done, and I challenge other representatives and different levels to do the same. Write down what it is, tangible outcome and delivery that you have done for your community. Give your constituents the opportunity to make a sound judgment on whether you have done it or not. Because the other thing that I think people need to be aware of, and we saw this with the state budget, for example, is the type of language that politicians use. What they'll do is use phrases that give the appearance of action and things happening, when in fact it's been of no consequence whatsoever. Kind of like running a forum on something that's actually not a state issue or a federal issue, vice versa, or a council issue. To do that is kind of disingenuous. So why would you have all these people come along, share their views on a particular issue, if all you're then going to do is like send the letter to the actual relevant person, whether it's state, local or federal. And that goes to trust, right? Building trust between the community and elected officials in the modern era is more important than ever. And I think the erosion of trust when people don't feel as though they're being spoken to plainly is a real challenge around the world.
One thing that's coming up quite a lot is gender quotas. And Susan Lee spoke at the press club a few days ago. And she said it's up to states whether they impose them or they don't. And one thing about New South Wales is that it's pretty close to gender parity. It's 45% females. Do you think because New South Wales, it's easier for politicians to leave their family? What I mean is you don't have to go to Canberra for a week. Do you think that could be contributing to why there's gender parity? Or what are you putting it down to in your mind for New South Wales? We're talking New South Wales specific because you're obviously a New South Wales politician. But what is it about New South Wales that
the numbers
has
seem to be more balanced than they are federally?
Well, I think there's a part B to that. 45% are women in our party room. Nearly the same amount are Gen Y or millennials.
So
right?
young,
So we've got like gender diversity plus a very young cohort of MPs. Labor don't have one MP under 35.
Wow.
So we've got this amazing crew of young women and young men that sit in our party room that allow us to have a really diverse voice.
That's a phenomenal figure when at the recent election, they reckon the percentage of those under the age of 29 that identify as being left. It's amazing that the left-leaning side of government don't have all the young ones, but the right-leaning side of government does.
And I think
amazing.
As we start to build our policy platform for 2027, you're going to see so much of that, having a really great view on the challenges and solving them for young people who are now the largest voting bloc in the country. So again, it goes to this perception issue of like, who is the Liberal Party and what are they about? You know, if you came and saw our state Liberal team, you'd be blown away because nearly half women and half 40 or under. So yeah, it's very cool. To your question, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I was trying to figure it out because, obviously I'm based in New South Wales as well. And when I saw how many females are in the New South Wales representation, I thought, what is it about state versus federal?
I don't know.
Jamie and I had this conversation though. We get a bit frustrated with the gender quota conversation. It's not something, I don't want quotas. I'm against quotas. I'll just be very transparent about that. I'm about merit and I'm about effort and I'm about what you can bring to the table and how you can contribute, and whether you're a male or a female that wants that role and gets voted in by your community, that's the priority for me. At the recent federal election, sure, there was a less percentage of females in the Liberal Party, but if you have a look at the 150 seats across the Liberals and Nationals of who actually ran, there was 43% women or something. It wasn't 20%. It wasn't this huge issue that everyone is making out it was. Those women didn't get voted in. Many great women, Jamie Rogers is one of them, Ro Knox, Amelia Hamer,
Giselle Capitarian.
Yep.
There were fabulous women around the place that didn't then get voted. So I don't think that just because they're women, they're going to get voted in.
Yeah.
Well, Tim Wilson's a perfect example of that in Goldstein. He was the only one to beat a teal, and he was a male. But I think it goes back to policy. There's a deeper issue of what happened last.
That's exactly my point, though. What's the point of trying to fix quotas? Fixing policy should be the priority.
There was
and that's what you
sell.
said about, just wait. If we can get a New South Wales Liberal government in power again, the policy platform you're wanting to build on is the priority, not quotas.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the state budget this week. So Labor government axed the rebate for IVF, right? If the shoe had been on the other foot, if it had been a coalition government, then I imagine that the outrage at a mean coalition government, not providing appropriate support to
women and families.
Would be, called out.
The headlines. No.
So, I think...
Same with health, actually. I think that they've been let off very lightly with the mental health lack of funding in that space at all, when it's been front page news. The ABC Four Corners did that horrendous look into the state of mental health in New South Wales, and it's diabolical. So to see it wasn't addressed at all...
Comprehensively, no.
...in the budget, I was quite disappointed by that, I must say. I was extremely surprised to see that nothing was addressed with mental health.
And I know your passion and background for it, and again, it goes back to this language piece, like a lot of big headline numbers, a lot of look at all this money being spent, but when you kind of dive into it and look for the hard questions, well, are you resolving the psychiatrist's pay issue? No. It's all pretty bad.
Do you blame media? Do you think that a big part of this is the actual messaging getting out there? I was so frustrated at the recent federal election. It very much played a hand in why Jamie and I have decided to try and make a difference and get information out there ourselves. Not because we want to be biased or sway it the other way. We just want to get to the facts and we want to talk common sense. And it frustrated us at the recent election that it was so polarizing. You've seen it in America. Trump got up and said, I could have found the cure to cancer, and none of you would clap. And I loved when he said that, because I thought we are at a stage with our media where if they don't want to touch something positive that the opposition are doing, they just won't report on it. And you're saying that right now, that Labor are getting let off lightly, and perhaps the Liberals aren't getting the media attention or coverage that they deserve.
I think it's complex in the sense that they no longer have the resources to cover as much as they probably could have historically, and that's then dramatically changed the media landscape. And so I spoke to some school students earlier in the week and said to them that, well, my view on social media 10 years ago was that it would be a net positive for the world. I no longer hold that view. I think it is a corrosive, problematic beast that is still being grappled with in how people consume information and how complex issues are distilled into now, the scroll.
Yeah, the mindless scrolling.
Which is why sitting down doing a long
message
form...
has to be done in 40 seconds.
Yeah, which you just can't.
Yeah.
So the long form chats now on the podcast, I think that's great, because it might rebalance things a little bit more in terms of, okay, you can actually have a bit of a more longer discussion about complex issues. So younger people consuming information and media off social media now means that it's very difficult to get to the source of truth a lot of the time, which is a challenge.
Now, one thing that you have been speaking about when we talk about social media, when you were a reporter for a day, which I must say I loved, talking about the tobacconists and the rise of these tobacco shops.
Crazy
and I
stuff.
thought that your post was very timely because my husband and I had been talking about it because one popped up right near where we live. And it's right near the school as well. And notice, it's 25% increase of what we've seen 4 years ago of these shops. Fill us in on where you're at with that, because you did put out a petition looking at putting in the parliamentary inquiry.
So as you guys have seen, these crazy little shops popping up like mushrooms. Everywhere.
Yeah.
And
I think you said a crazy statistic. There are 60 tobacconists to every Maccas.
That's right.
And
people think there are enough Maccas. So having 60 tobacconists, and so there's something very strange going on in the sense that you can't tell me that you need that many shops to supply.
Or that they're making money to be paying the rents in the locations
because they're often in quite prominent spots.
There's one now, right opposite Coles. And I know the rents in that place. Like, it'd be paying $100,000, more than $100,000 a year rent. I've never seen anyone walk in there. So how are they making the money?
It's I think, look, it's been well publicised, the relationship between these shops and organised crime, firstly. The second is, if you want to vape and you're over 18, frankly, I don't personally care. Like, I know for some people it's a stepping stone from nicotine or cigarettes, hopefully to off it altogether. At the moment, you're meant to only have them through a prescription at a pharmacist, but this is a great example of people's consumption habits and technology, frankly, kind of outpacing legislation. And so the laws that govern a tobacconist and what they can sell and where they can be aren't fit for purpose today. So that's how you end up with a perverse situation where you've got a tobacconist across the road looking at a school. And then on the shop windows, it's all lollies and
the American lollies,
and, so the kids are like,
My
and then
kids.
they start to go in there and get excited about it. So we're trying to stamp these things out. There are 3 probably issues. You've got a health problem with respect to people smoking the vapes. You've got illegal tobacco being sold in these shops because people can't afford to pay the $60 a packet anymore. And I've got, there's a degree of sympathy that this tax has gotten to a point where it's now delivering a perverse outcome that we're seeing, where the illegal stuff's far cheaper and you might as well just do it. And then you've got the kids, them being kind of sucked into what's in the shop and all this.
You only need to ask all your local high school principals, and I think they'll tell you that it's an issue in every single high school we have. Them getting hold of a vape, and you've got kids that are 12, 13, 14. I mean, year 7 through to year 12 doing it in the bathrooms.
So bad. So the petition's got nearly 1,000 signatures already. We're calling on the government to get off their arse and do better. This has been bubbling along for more than half a year now. And at a point you got to go, guys, like, what's happening here? So if they don't do it, we'll push them, and then hopefully we'll have something on that pretty soon. But the community response has been a really visceral one. A lot of parents outraged that this is the case. A big shout out to Northern Beaches Living, who have done a wonderful job in promoting this issue and sharing the petition. So thank you to them. It's one of those things that, this is what a good local MP, I think, will kind of see as a problem. We tap into and try and understand how can you solve it. So not
Perfect.
good.
Thank you for listening to the JJ Podcast.